Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
Hello, I'm Twyla Kim. I've been an artist and hairstylist in Santa Barbara for 20 years. I personalize color, design, and precision haircuts for each individual at Sequel Salon in Montecito. I'm happy to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Hello and welcome. I'm Patricia Diorio and this is Get Conscious Now, the television show that informs, uplifts, and inspires us to remember that we are energy beings in physical form, spiritual beings having a human experience. What's even more exciting is that we have this innate immeasurable power to create our reality, which we're doing all the time. Today's show is about what it means to be conscious creators of our reality, and we're going to learn some practical conscious creativity tips, if you will, that we can employ in our lives every day to ensure the success of our manifesting skills. But first, I'd like to introduce my gracious co-host over here, Stu Zimmerman, who I'm sure has some very inspirational words of welcome for you. Stu?
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, welcome everybody to Get Conscious Now. And as Patricia mentioned, it really is about, if our lives are like this, how can we start to raise them up and bring them up with intention, with consciousness, and really let out even more of the love we have in our hearts. So it's not just simply a concept, but a full-bodied living reality. And later in the program, in my Stu's Views section, so you gotta watch the whole show here, is that I'm gonna mention a grounded example of how reality can exceed our dreams. And I know you wanna hear that, but first we have an amazing guest with us today. And Patricia, why don't you share more and introduce our guest?
I am. So, science tells us that everything is energy in what appears to be a material world. But the fact is that the material world is simply energy, vibrating at a frequency that gives it density. So the lower the frequency, the harder the form. Now this includes us. We are actually energy beings with this amazing power to create our worlds. Now, when we're creating our worlds deliberately, we're clear on what we want and we put that focus out there. But unfortunately, the majority of us in this human experience create our worlds by default. We're not consciously creating our worlds. And when that happens, it leads to the slippery slope of being a victim of our world instead of being a creator of it. So our guest today is going to really help us get clear on how we can become proficient conscious creators. Her name is Jackie Lapin, and she is a world leader in educating, coaching, and mentoring people about conscious, practical conscious creation. She is the author, the best-selling, award-winning author of 2 books. The first is The Art of Conscious Creation, How You Can Transform Your World. I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but I'm going to hold it up there. And the second one is Practical Conscious Creation, Daily Techniques for Manifesting Your Desires. Both excellent books. I highly recommend them. Jackie is also the founder and president of Conscious Media Relations, which is a PR firm that promotes other transformational leaders that serve the body, mind, spirit community. And she has a very impressive list of clients. Some of them, I'm sure you must know. Hay House is one, Agape International, Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of my favorite scientists, Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote The Fifth Agreement and many other wonderful books, and Dr. Eric Pearl of the Reconnection Work. So she's working with some pretty amazing people. The last thing I want to share with you about Jackie is something that I know she is very excited about, and this is her latest project, and it's called Life Wisdom Network. It's a virtual village on the web that is a marketplace, it's a directory, and it's an informational resource guide for the growing, very fast-growing consciousness and transformational world. So if I were to sum up Jackie Lapin in one sentence, I would say this, that she is an amazing, pioneering spirit who is the connector between mainstream world and the body-mind-spirit world. Jackie, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, Patricia, I'm so delighted to be here.
Really
Thank
thrilled
you.
to have you. Yeah, Stu and I have been really looking forward to this interview.
Indeed, yes. Jackie, thank you so much for being here. And first, may I say thank you for matching me here in the color scheme here. It must be the one mind of something like that. We are talking about energy and frequencies on one level, but can you explain to us and to our audience exactly what that has to do with creating reality?
Well, each of us, as Patricia was saying, we're energy beings, and the vibrations that we put out of the world are not just our bodies, but our thoughts and our emotions. And when they go out into the world, they actually affect people or things in a domino kind of effect, or they actually attract like energy back. So when we are vibrating, we're vibrating in a frequency range. The low end of the frequency range is fear and anxiety and worry and disappointment. And when we're putting those things out into the world, that's what we're attracting back into our lives. Or more things to reinforce those feelings. If you're feeling jealous, if you're feeling angry, it's going to give you more opportunity to feel those things. That is driving your life. It's like driving a car with the brakes on. And everything is difficult, life gets challenging. That's when you're having financial problems or relationship problems, etc. On the other hand, if you're vibrating in the high range, which is love and compassion and joy and peace and trust in the universe, you're actually vibrating with the universe. The universe vibrates at the level of love, which is the highest vibration in the universe. So when we're vibrating in that space, then we're being carried along, something like being drafted in a race car or having the wind in our sails. And that's when life gets easy. Synchronicities happen, doors open, and you think, wow, everything is so fantastic. When you are consciously creating, which is creating with intent, when you're vibrating in the high frequency range, that is when you begin to see things happen very quickly. It's very Pavlovian, because when you see it happen, you think, oh, this is so cool, I want to do more of it. But it's very astonishing at how repetitive and how frequent that can be when you're conscious of the vibrational level, when you are doing that interaction with your intentional creations. And so what we're here today to talk about is how to raise your personal frequency and become a better, faster manifester day by day. And that's what Practical Conscious Creation is. It's basically a real wonderful little opportunity to give people the skills to become better, faster manifestors.
Great. So before we get into your tips for us, I want to talk a little bit about the movie that came out about 10 years ago, The Secret. Everyone was just so excited about that movie, and when I finally sat and watched it, I found myself getting angry. And I felt that this is my personal feeling, I really felt that the information that was being delivered to the masses was that, on the one hand, it was good that our thoughts are creating our reality, but on the other hand, there was no talk about vibration, no talk about being happy, no talk about having a positive attitude when we're speaking our worlds, our lives into creation. And I think in that way, it really did a great disservice to people, because as people would put forth what they wanted, and it wouldn't be happening, they wouldn't realize it was maybe about vibrational frequency, or more likely about a program in their subconscious that's holding them back and keeping them from manifesting, and none of this was really expressed. So I just wanted to see, perhaps that was just my unilateral view.
You're actually dead on. And one of the reasons that people did not see their realities change was because the universe was getting mixed messages. And that's really one of the important messages here. We'll talk more about clarity. When the universe gets these mixed frequencies, it can't provide what you're asking for. Because if you're actually putting out down here, I'm not good enough, the world is against me, everything is going to hell in a handbasket, everybody's against me, I gotta blame everyone else. And at the same time, you're holding these high frequency images of what you want to have. That's not going to happen. because the frequency is dissonant. So when you raise your frequency, being in a positive, high vibrational state, and you begin to do the reality creation, conscious creation activities, that's when you're going to see a difference, a real significant difference. But you have to be very conscious of what you're putting out into the world before you begin to do this work, because you're going to be disappointed if you don't.
Yeah, good.
So let's get into it. Okay, let's roll up the energetic sleeves here. And you have 7 steps for consciously creating reality. Why don't you discuss the first step here? What can we do, and let's go step by step through the process.
Well, the first step is acknowledging that you are solely responsible for what it is that you create in the world. Now, that doesn't mean that there are not other impacts, but the fact is that by shifting your vibration into the high frequency range, you actually change the dynamics of your life to attracting more positive experiences than negative experiences. You're shifting the ratio. So if you understand that you have the ability to do that, and that you can create more positive experiences in your life than negative experiences, then you realize that you're in control here, that you are no longer a victim, as you talked about. You can let go of your victimhood. So the first step is taking responsibility for your own life and choosing to have certain experiences rather than allowing yourself to live in a state of unconscious creation and just let life happen to you.
And I like to comment on that first step. For me, it is about owning our power to be the creators, but first, we need to own our true identity. We need to own the fact that we are not just these bodies, these human beings. In fact, the term human being, right? Who is the being that's having the human experience? A human being human. So people don't even think about that. They take it for granted. But in my opinion, before we can really understand the power that we have and how we're exercising it all the time, whether we're aware or not, we need to know why we have this power. We have this power because we're all spirit, we're all energy, we're all God little g, having a human experience. Each of us is a unique expression of the divine in human form. So when we can really come into integration with that, and that's a big order to ask, because people are so conditioned to think that we're separate from each other and we're separate from God. And I was raised in a very traditional Catholic environment, and I was never taught that I was an aspect of God, that everything that was connected, that God was not out there, up there, somewhere separate. So for me, that's the precursor to accepting our power. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yes, I would just say, with your background being, Catholic and Christian, mine being Jewish, so my legacy was more one of victimization on one level and materialism on the other, as most you can really aspire to is materialism, even though that really isn't the teaching of the religion per se, it's more the practice of it. What I noticed is that we are more, to your point, we are more than this material world. And the things that we really ultimately want in life, like love and to be loved, the simple things, really go far beyond materialism and far beyond even what The Secret was kind of guiding this law of attraction to, was the acquiring the Ferrari, more than acquiring a sense of peace because you're connected to something greater.
Well, and what we're teaching here is that you want to be the frequency that you want to attract. Right. So if you want to be God in the space of love and joy, then express love and joy. If you want to be in a place of abundance, then feel and be and act abundant. So, when you're thinking about this responsibility that you have, remember that you must be what it is that you want to have in your life. So it's very important.
But Gandhi said that in one of his quotes, right? We must be the peace.
Be the change.
Be the change.
That you seek in the world.
That you seek in the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. So what is the second step?
The second step is beginning to recognize how you lower your frequency on a daily basis. Many of us have what I call negative energy habits. We complain all the time. We're in this negative thought loop about everything in our lives. We naturally assume everything is going to happen for the worst. We simply, want to feel that it's all happening to us. I mean, there's lots of negative patterns that we create in our life ongoing. And so you can tune into those and begin to recognize that you do them. And I recommend that anybody who doesn't think they do this, set their cell phone to go off once every hour and then tune into what you're thinking when you do that. You're going to see a real surprise. So once you begin to see your patterns, then you can actually start changing. And you can start substituting, and you can go, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to think that anymore. I'm going to shift. You have this ability. So the first part about it is figure out where you're taking yourself down in a negative way. I mean, personally, I'm a natural glass half empty. That's my nature.
Really? I would never take you for that.
I had to train myself. I had to work very hard to get out of that framework and thinking, and sometimes I fall back into it. So for me, it's real effort to make sure that I am conscious of the fact that when I'm taking myself down, that I can shift myself out. Because one of the things that I've discovered, that if I allow myself to go into that trough, the next day is not going to be any fun. Because the universe is going to bring me all kinds of things that I'm not thrilled about. Or if I walk into a room and I've got a ball in my stomach, that's the day my computer goes out, and that's no accident. Because it's responding to my vibration.
Exactly.
So
it's that precise.
It's critical.
Yeah, in fact, as you were speaking, it not only reminded me one of Eckhart Tolle and his notion of the pain body, that all of us have these pain bodies and the neural synapses are just used to firing in a certain way, they don't feel so good.
Yeah.
And that, for many people, is who they think they are all these combinations of feelings, right? And so what you're saying is to become aware of when we're not feeling so great, we can actually use that as like a bit of an alarm or a self-correction guidance system to say, guess what? I'm at the lower end of the spectrum, no judgment, hopefully, and just gently come back and steer ourselves to take responsibility back to step one.
Exactly.
And actually, many of the steps that you have here are steps that I include in the work that I do in my circle work. And the first one is acknowledging our true nature and our power, and also being able to recognize our patterns. And our patterns come from belief systems, imprints and programs in the subconscious that we got plugged into, and how we were raised, whether we were raised in a religion, when we were raised. It makes a huge difference where your parents came from and the kind of upbringing they have, because we all get that downloaded into our subconscious. And you're familiar with Bruce Lipton's work. He says that everything that from conception through age 6 goes right into the subconscious as a computer program.
Exactly.
Good, bad, and indifferent. So it goes in as truth, even though it may not serve us. And this is where I'm not good enough, I'm never amount to anything, I'm never going to meet the right person, I'm too fat, I'm too tall, whatever. Those programs go in and they create the blocks. So I agree with you 100% that it's the awareness of those negative habit patterns that you call them, that you name them.
Well, and if you translate that into, okay, what am I vibrating right now? It really brings it really down home. So when you realize that that's what you're putting out into the world, you have this wonderful illumination, the opportunity to make a change.
Right.
And that's what the third one is about. And that is begin to take responsibility and control and of how to raise your personal frequency. That's a real key. So now we're there, we know we're doing it. Now how do we do this? How do we go into that next vibration? How do we move ourselves up the chain?
I'm sure everybody's paying attention right now. We're riveted.
Well, the first thing is, we talked about negative energy habits. Well, there's also the whole thing about just having a bad day. And so there's one thing about really being cognizant of shifting the specifics. And we'll talk about changing the perspective in a minute. But if you're just having one of those rotten days, you need to get out of that bad energy state, there's some really fun things that you can do. I have 300 beautiful roses in around my home, so I literally go out and smell the roses. But other people can get out in nature, they can exercise, they can play music, they can listen to music,
they can sing.
They can sing. They can go play with their children, they can play with their pets, they can meditate. They can read, they can go to the movies. Anything that gives you peace or joy will shift your energy. You might have a hobby, whatever it is. If it gives you a sense of peace and joy, it'll shift you out of there instantaneously. Now, as for the other kinds of things, there's one chapter in here that I really love. It's called Changing Your Perspective. And so many of us experience something and we naturally assume that it's a negative. But if you simply reframe it into a different way of looking at it, all of a sudden you're raising your frequency. When you look at it and think, what have I learned from this? What is the universe trying to teach me? How can I take this and help somebody else with it? What here is going to make me do this better the next time? Just reframing it. There's 20 questions in this chapter, and it just allows you to look at things differently. You know, and then you also want to think, all right, what is an alternate thought that I could have? What is an alternate emotion that I can give myself right now that will counter what it is? The universe actually responds to the very last vibration it got. It'll actually erase. There's a thing in here that talks about cancel. So if you've done something and you said something, because our vibrations also are affected by what we say. So when you say something that is negative, you can say cancel, 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 and start over again. So the real key here is what is a new thought? What is a new emotion that I can put in its place that's going to take me to the next highest level? One of the things that I love to do is when I want to feel love, I imagine myself being trampled over by puppies, all just lovingly kissing my face and all over my body. Now, do you tell me how many people aren't going to just instantly get into a state in love when they think about puppies or kittens?
Right.
It's a great upper. So those are some of little steps that you can do. But this book, Practical Conscious Creation, is filled with various different steps, activities, actions that you can take that are all going to raise your frequency.
I think, too, that when we have, let's say, a creation that we want to bring forth, and we make that positive statement, we now have a successful show. What we're doing is oh God, can you believe I lost my train of thought here?
We are having a successful show. How could you forget about that, Patricia?
No. I wanted to make a point and it just
Well, you're creating the reality when you do that.
Right, you're creating a reality when you do that, but that was not my point. It'll come back to me. I just have to trust that it'll come back to me, yeah.
Okay, so let's continue to move along with the steps here.
Okay.
So basically where we've gone so far is one, to take responsibility of our lives and our emotional and energetic state of being. Two is to notice the moments when we're kind of lagging or slacking or feeling in a denser vibration and hopefully not believe that's all of who we are, right? And then three is now starting to take action steps to move up the vibrational scale by doing something that will trigger a sense of peace or a sense of joy. And that's something that can be individual to the individual, right? So it's not one size fits all, but it's really, we all have that capability. And we all know what our chocolate is in life, right? Without binging, hopefully. So what would be the good next step that comes after that once we've gotten to the first three?
I remembered. I wanted to make the point about singing. We can create whatever it is we want to create if we sing it into creation. Instead of speaking it into creation, the vibrational frequency is higher. So what I recommend to my circle participants is go out in nature and sing your intentions into the field, or go to the ocean or the mountains and hiking and sing it, and I think it's much more powerful. Whenever I get in a hard space, whenever I'm doing the glass half empty kind of thing, and I recognize that, which I try to do every time I fall into that space, I sing myself out of it, with mantras or whatever it is, because that really does. And do you remember Ken Carey from, he wrote The Third Millennium and the Bird Tribe People? I don't remember. Anyway, he wrote a book called The Third Millennium, Post-Historic Man, which is really about what we can expect as we move into this new time. And what he is actually, it's a channeled work, and he brings through these beings that call themselves the angels of the primal coherence. And one of the things they say we're going to be experiencing as we move into this new time is that we would be singing into creation, new creations.
How lovely.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thought.
Yeah, be singing into creation.
Would you like to sing the next question into creation? I'm just asking.
Probably better not do that.
That's what I call, yeah.
So 3, personal frequency management. And thank you for that excellent recap.
My pleasure.
It was very good. So 4.
4 is get clear.
On
It's
what you
being
want.
really clear on what you want. And we already talked about the fact that if there's any kind of ambivalence, the universe can't get it. So you have to really know what it is that you want and feel like it's gonna happen. You know that this is the what you are deserving of. This is what you want in life, and this is what you're willing to work for. And so that's the next step. The step after that is begin to create that in your mind as if you are already there, as if you already have it, as if you are in that place and you're seeing it and sensing it and smelling it and perceiving it. And here's the important part about it. It's not just your thoughts. Your emotions have to be in the place of as if you were already in joy, in love, experiencing this with such happiness, feeling abundant, because our emotions are actually the express mail to the cosmic post office.
That's a good way of looking at it.
The universe responds so much more strongly to our emotions because they really are the subject matter of our unconsciousness, of the subconscious, and so we want to basically bring those out into the open and really curve them, mold them into what it is that we want to be feeling at that point. Because we talked about frequency matching. So if you are in that place, experiencing the emotions of it, you are creating the frequency of it so that you can attract it.
I think Joe Dispenza expresses this well when he says that our thoughts are electrical and our emotions are magnetic.
Yeah.
So they have to be, both of them need to be present. We just can't have an intention without the emotion. We can't just have the emotion without the intention, but when there's a combination of both, and he's done studies on this with the DNA, where it proved that when the mind and the emotions are in sync, that the manifestation occurs.
Yep, absolutely. That is definitely true, I think.
And it all feeds back to paying attention to when we're not vibrating at a frequency of being happy.
Yes.
And we need to be present enough, in my opinion, to do whatever it takes for us to shift our vibrational frequency before we move on. Because whatever it is we're thinking about in that moment, we're creating our future now moment.
Well, and one of the things is a lot of times people will anticipate having problems with somebody in their lives. Now, if you're fretting over that, then in fact that's what you're going to experience with that person. If, on the other hand, you visualize this going so well, it's such a joy, and you love working together, and you care about each other, and I love to say I throw my pink love net over them, then in fact you have a much higher chance that the encounter is going to be a positive one.
I totally concur with that. I call it pre-paving the future energetically for what you want to have happen. Yeah. And for many years, when I moved to California and I got involved with all of this spiritual stuff, my family back east, the Catholics and Catholic conservative East Coasters, were just, they would throw their hands up. They just could not believe that I was actually doing this work and having come from the Catholic environment that I did. But I knew that I couldn't sit eyeball to eyeball with them and have a conversation because they wouldn't hear me. And after many years of trying that, when I would go back for my family reunion, I just gave up. And I said, what I need to do is just send them love. They're my family, and I love them, and I know they love me. So I just started working with them energetically every day in what I call the garden of my imagination. And my relationship with them, after a year of doing that, shifted 180 degrees, and And it isn't that they understand me better or my work. It's just that it's not important.
You've changed the vibration.
You've changed the vibration.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a
really
great
been
lesson.
amazing. Yeah,
it's really
it is.
great.
It is.
One of the tools that I use is just coming back to a predominant thought that it is such a blessing that I exist. And
nice.
that any of us do.
Yeah.
So even in those moments that, if I had my hair, I'd be pulling it out, it's still such a blessing just to have this human experience, given the fact that on some profound level we go beyond form. And so to be in these sensuous, sensitive, sensing bodies of ours, and to be able to experience it all, is to me, if we were all in this hum every single moment of ecstatic delight, I'm not sure if it ever get boring. I don't know. It looked like the EKG after we've passed away. So I'm not sure if that's a straight line. But it just feels so wonderful to be able to even have some of the contrast. So even in those moments where, I got low blood sugar and I'm a bit, it still feels good.
Yes.
Just to know we can shift.
Yep.
And move it on to a more loving place.
Absolutely.
Well, without our physical body, we wouldn't really be able to enjoy this realm.
And this show would be a lot more boring. So we're moving on now. So we've gone through, where were we now?
We've done clarity, now we're doing the visualization.
So
Just on the
step
visualization.
five.
Here's
Step
the next,
five.
no, we're actually on to step 6.
Oh, we're on
at
6?
this point.
Wow, that
And
was
here's
fast.
the cool one. Okay. And this is called become an actionary. And this is really the important thing. The universe supports those people which actually start taking the steps and moving forward. You cannot be a couch potato and expect things to happen. Put it out there and just walk away. And yes, you need to do that and essentially let go of it. But you can't just expect it to be delivered to you. You have to actually do something. Move forward. Take action. There's one of the articles in here where I talk about what happens when you make a commitment. And there's a sort of a imagery of an Indiana Jones character. He's racing to the chasm. The bad guys are behind him. He sees this giant chasm, but there's no bridge over it. And he looks around and he says, what do I do? And there's this little Yoda creature who walks up and says, take the first step. And so he takes the first step, and the first step of the bridge appears. And then he takes the next one, and the next step appears. And that's actually the way it is in life. When you take one step, the universe will give you some guidance. We'll put somebody in your walkway that helps you. It will provide guidance, support, open doors, whatever it is. Once you start moving forward, the universe aligns in your behalf. So you have to take action in order for your conscious creation reality to really begin to move forward. So that's a really important step.
And just to clarify, in addition to taking action, the idea is that you're present as much as possible in the vibration that you would expect the action to create.
Yes.
So that it's all of the above simultaneously, the thought, the feeling, and the action in harmony.
And not a sense of desperation, because if you're putting out desperation and need, that's a function of lack. You need to be in an expectation of joy and wonder and just simply no expectations. Just saying, I believe that the universe will, I trust the universe to bring to me what is in my highest good.
And the operative word there is belief, right? Belief is so important. And there are 4 levels of belief, and the first 3 levels require believing based on the past. All right? I won't go into them now. But the 4th level is believing something before you see it, right? Some say seeing is believing. I say believing is seeing. I think that Wayne Dyer said that, but I knew this very, very long time ago. So when we believe that we can bring in that life partner, when we believe that we can have our financial freedom, that we can be fully expressed in our soul's work, and we move forward in that intent and be sure that our vibrational frequency is up, then we're going to create it before it even happens. And that really reshuffles the deck in life. For us to believe something, just because we're creators of our reality, we're creator gods creating our reality, we believe it and it shows up.
Well, and I'll give you a perfect example, and this is, I certainly understand that there's a lot of people out there that are in financial stress. But one of the things that I learned was the more I worried, the more I had stress, my life was challenged, until I finally realized that the universe provides for me. As long as I walk a path that is a moral and right path, meaning, you know, what I believe is in concert with the universe.
Coming from love.
Then the money always shows up. And the less I worried about it, my life got easier. And I have a firm belief that the universe takes care of me. And as a result, it'll show up at some point. I don't know how and where it's going to come from, but it shows up.
The how is not important.
Exactly. So just knowing in your heart that you trust the universe is a very big step. And there's a whole chapter here on trust and trust and commitment. This is really an important element in being a conscious creator.
And surrender.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, surrender is key. Clarity on what we want is wonderful, and then taking action steps, yes. But then we have to let go of what we think it's going to look like. That's the whole expectation thing. And trust that the universe is going to deliver our desired outcome in the most appropriate way.
Well, it actually might not deliver exactly what you actually wanted, because it might actually deliver something either better for you or that you had never anticipated, but that is in your highest good.
Right, exactly. And that's what that surrender comes in, you know, surrendering. Because sometimes I use this, I can't recall who gave me this metaphor, but it's a great one. It's like in our human experience, we're inside a dark closet. And we're only seeing what's around us in the closet. We're not seeing what's outside. You know? So we only know so much. But if we can surrender and trust and be willing to expand our limited thinking, get out of our comfort zone, then we're surprised very wonderfully by what shows up.
Absolutely. It's a very empowering element to go into life as saying, I know that you're going to offer me something that will inspire me today and bring me to a place that I will have new opportunities. And if you do that instead of, I talked to you about the fact that I'm a glass half empty. I have a resistance to change. I mean, and I know that is part of myself, and I have to get to a place where I say, okay, you know the change is good and it's going to be fine. You have to assume everything is going to be well. And then when I get into that place, then I'm good. And by the way, if I can go from a glass half full to glass half empty to a glass half full, anybody else can do it too.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a quote from Joe Dispenza that I love. In fact, it's an outgoing message on one of my phones. He says that real change can only happen when we think greater than our environment. So that thinking greater than our environment is our getting clear on what we want and believing that's going to happen without having evidence from the past that it will. That takes tremendous trust and surrender and wisdom.
And potentially acceptance of the real physical reality of us all being interconnected by something truly greater than all of us, an environment greater than all of us, a unified field of consciousness that we simply have an illusion of separation from. And that typically, I notice for myself, that illusion of separation is typically at the root of my denser vibrations. And when when I'm upset or sad or disappointed or, feeling whatever I'm feeling, aggravated, typically it's because I feel disconnected from something larger, something that really is, in my humble opinion, although it seems to be based on scientific fact, that I am something, an aspect of something greater. And when I embrace that, call it surrender to it, or trust it, I can ask, even especially when I'm sick, when I'm not feeling well physically, here, you know what? You created me, whoever or whatever you are, universe, God, spirit, source, creator of all things, whatever it's called. You created it. This is your vehicle here. What do you want to do? I'm inviting in some joy and fun, and feel free to have at it and use me for service.
Well, and a lot of times I'll say, okay, I don't have a solution for this, God, so I'm turning this one over to you. And do that. And then the other thing is, and this is one of the tips in here that I think is really valuable, is that you just have to go through life saying, all is well.
All is well.
All is well.
Right.
It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
All is well.
Okay, I'm going through a little tough time right now. It's going to work out. I don't know how yet. I can't see my way, but everything works out to my benefit in the long run. So if you go through life assuming that, you're putting yourself on a higher vibration, and therefore it's self-perpetuating. That's where you're consciously creating on a daily basis.
I think the free will is what gets us into trouble, right? Because when we have free will, we can make unconscious choices that result in that glass half empty. And the spirit will not interfere with us. When we have free will, we are of spirit and the same vibration, but we can make choices unconsciously that put us in a hard spot in creating what we want.
Well, and I often find that, I've spent so many years being a type A and in control and a businesswoman and executive. You want to control everything. And then I finally realized that I'm doing this with the universe. I'm doing this with God, so I don't have to do everything. I don't have to have all the control. If I assume that it's all going to work out right, then in fact it's going to be a whole lot easier than trying to keep grabbing for that control, which is a low frequency manifestation.
So really what you're saying in terms of control, because that is a magic word for so many people in the world, what we really have to control is what we pay attention to. And pay attention to our state of being, our energetic vibration. That is something we have absolute control over, as well as some of the action steps to move it up a vibrational scale.
We were talking about money before, and part of this is, while I can vibrate abundance and choose all, you have to take steps to move in the right direction. I do anticipate that the universe is going to bring me money, but I still have to do the things that will, in fact, generate money. So I can't assume that somehow it's just magical. The universe will help me produce it because I'm actually doing the things.
And that's when synchronicity abounds. That's when the right people and the right connections start to happen.
Exactly.
When we surrender to, I call it following the energy instead of trying to control it. Would you give us the last step? Because I want to.
Well, the last step is very simple. It's applying practical conscious creation in everything that you do. So it's just bringing this into your life. So, that's what this whole conversation is about, essentially.
And I'm totally 100% with you. And I'd just like to add something from my own personal experience, as well as working with many clients in this process. That this is the hardest work that we will ever do, I think. I think it's the hardest work that we will ever do, because we are so programmed by those belief systems about ourselves that we were programmed with as children, that if we don't have the help to become aware that we even have these programs, then we're just like Joe Dispenza calls it, being on a neural net loop where the body becomes the mind, then the mind becomes the body, and you have a negative emotion triggering a negative thought, etc. So being aware of our patterns is critically important. And I wanted to ask you if you employ any of the new energy psychologies in your work, like the tapping, emotional freedom technique, and EMDR, or any of these other techniques that are also very powerful in helping us shift these programs.
I don't personally, but I use them occasionally, but not on a regular basis. But I respect and love the people that do. One of my very closest friends is from Santa Barbara, Dr. Lori Layden, who works very extensively in the tapping world. And she has shown incredible changes with people in the work that she does with people in Rwanda and people in Newtown, and so I think that that's all valid and very supporting of the things that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So why don't we go and, if you would, offer us and our audience here a little journey, if you will, to give this manifestation process even a deeper, real-time experience for everybody.
Well, one of the things is we've been talking about money, and that's a hot button for most people. And because we so focus on our financial struggles, we're creating more financial struggles. So it's so much better when we have something to replace that with, this high vibration. So if you'd like, you might want to close your eyes for a moment and just imagine that you have swallowed a little seed, and it's going right down into your tummy and embeds itself there, and oh my goodness, it's starting to create a whole stem. And out of that stem comes a trunk, and off that trunk grows branches, and from those branches, beautiful green leaves that are $1,000 bills. And you pluck one of those $1,000 bills and you go spend it. Another one's growing right back in its place. And then you pluck another one, and another one grows back. You are an ever-abundant money tree. You have this beautiful money tree within you. It is constantly flourishing as long as you feed it beauty and love and support, and the universe, your source of money, are always nurturing us. So if you really want to remember all of the time that you are an ever-abundant money tree, it is a beautiful opportunity to actually you can get a visual of this if you want. Go to my website, jackielapin.com, or Practical Conscious Creation, and hit the drop-down bar, and you can put it on your vision board, and you can put it at your mirror, you can put it at your desk to remind you that you are ever abundant. And so when you go into that worried money space, remember that you are a money tree.
Well, thank you, Jackie. Sounds a lot like the Fed. Every time the Fed starts running out of dough, I'll just print some more.
So we're coming to the end of the interview section of the show, and I always like to ask our guests to give our audience a pearl of wisdom. That would be, if you were to condense our conversation in one very powerful pearl of wisdom, what is it that you'd like to tell our audience?
When in doubt about raising your frequency, ask, what would my soul do? Because your soul is abundant and happy and joyful, and it has none of the other baggage. So strip it all away and say, what would my soul do? And that will put you on the right track. That will bring your vibration up. Just imagine that you are this beautiful soul, and remember that it will always guide you to the right place.
Great.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. This has been a wonderful interview.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you,
you.
Jackie.
I'm so
Yeah,
delighted
and
to be
I
here.
hope you'll enjoy the rest of our show here too.
Thank you.
Moving right on to our next segment,
Okay.
Stu's Views.
Thank you. Here we go. We're going to do a little Stu's Views here. And as the tease had it earlier, it really is about having our dream probably our reality actually exceed our dream. And we've kind of talked a little bit about that and touched that with Jackie in the interview. And I want to give you a real life example. You're probably watching this, as you may know now, the Cardinals made the World Series, as this is being taped live inside our studio audience right here. But you may be seeing it, and the outcome of the World Series may already be known. But I want to take you back in time to when I was 7. Growing up in St. Louis, the Cardinals were my first love. They beat the Yankees in the World Series against all odds, and I fell in love with that team. And I wondered as a 7-year-old, how can I possibly, is it possible ever to see the Cardinals win the World Series in St. Louis? And of course, the answer in my logical mind was, no, that's for rich people. That's for people with season tickets. You're a 7-year-old kid, you're never going to get it. Just let it go. So I did. So we get to fast forward now, 42 years later, where I'm a part of this angel investment group doing private equity investing, and who should show up but this guy named Tony La Russa, then manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, who had this foundation called ARF, Animal Rescue Foundation. And he shared a couple of baseball anecdotes, but he was really there to raise money for his charity. And out of nowhere, he actually pulls out a baseball fantasy package that would have people, having box seats and having dinner with him after the game, blah, blah, blah. Well, I was like a cigar store Indian, raising my hand here, and I ain't putting it down until I outbid all these other millionaires, which was a gulp, big price, trust me. And I just feel so grateful that at the moment I was actually able to afford it. Got a chance to meet Tony a little bit, talk with him a little bit. He put another baseball fantasy package up for grabs. This one, a very expensive one, $10,000 minimum. And so I knew I couldn't afford that, but I was heading an auction committee that was auctioning this. So I tried to get the ball rolling and say, here, I'll do 5,000. Come on, do I hear 6? Do I hear 7? I heard silence. So I just figured, okay, you know what? We're not going to meet the minimum. Got to give it back. So I was going to give it back, but someone said, you know what? I'm putting in 5,000 too, and we're going. This time I took baseball practice on the field, batting practice in uniform, took my breath away. Cardinals win, bottom of the ninth. It was amazing. I have dinner with Tony after the game. He goes, Stu, you're a good fan, but you're just a fan. I want you to feel what I feel. I want your guts to churn with every pitch like mine does. Tell you what, we win tomorrow, I'm going to pay your way through the playoffs and World Series. If we lose, you pay. I'm like, boom, shake, done. He goes, you know, you're not risking anything here. I said, you know what, Tony, I'm not risking anything, but I got good reflexes, and a deal's a deal, and that's the way it is. Sure enough, Cardinals lost the next day. They did get into the playoffs. True to his word, he put tickets away from me for the playoffs, both rounds. They made it to the World Series. Amazing. He put tickets away from me. He calls me up on between games 2 and 3. Cardinals win the first game. They lose the second one in Detroit. He calls me and says, Stu, I got tickets for you, but they're in a B of A suite. Very pricey. Comes with all you can eat. And I said, I'll figure out a way to finance it, Tony, but I got to tell you, I thought you'd have other things on your mind in terms, rather than where I'm going to sit the next day. But sure enough, God bless Tony, true to his word, I went to the World Series. They had to win 3 games in a row to win the World Series in St. Louis, and that's what happened. How reality exceeded the dream for me was that I could have imagined possibly going to see the Cardinals win the World Series in St. Louis. I could not have fathomed ever befriending their manager. I could never have imagined wearing a uniform and being on the field, shagging fly balls and rubbing elbows with potential Hall of Famers and All-Stars. I just gave it all up, and what happened far exceeded reality. And I just want to invite you all to consider this possible inspiration for yourself. That whatever your dreams are, they really can actually be exceeded by reality if you let them go and your heart is really pure. And whatever shows up, it could be more than what you could accept. And so that's it. And with that, we're going to bring it right back to Patricia for some quantum quotes.
Great, thank you. That was a great story. That's wonderful. So, quantum quotes. I went online and I was amazed to find so many resources for conscious creation quotes. It was amazing. And I printed them all out because I want to have them in my library. But actually, I found the quote for tonight's show in one of Jackie's books, in Practical Conscious Creation. And actually, she's quoting an author by the name of, forgive me here, her name is Joy Brown, and Dr. Joy Brown, and she has a best-selling book called Getting Unstuck. And here's the quote: expectation is the death of serenity. Think about that. Expectation is the death of serenity. So when we're deliberate creators of our reality, we have to be very careful not to have an attachment to the form and expect the form to show up in a certain way. Because when we expect the form to show up in a certain way, what we're doing is we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. And as Stu wonderfully expressed in his story, is we're limiting the possibility of what it is we desire to come forth. For example, if I want to bring a partner into my life, a life partner, I can, and I'm being tried here, say, oh, I want him to be a tall, dark, handsome, rich guy from Montecito or from wherever. And I may bring him in, but he may be not what I would want. He may be even a disaster. Rather, I would focus on the qualities that I'm looking for in this person. Someone who is available, committed, monogamous, generous, fun, respectful, kind, sexy, playful, and cherishes me. Do I care how the universe is going to bring forth the form? I don't. I don't care how old he is, what color he is, or anything about him from the standpoint of the form, because all the essence qualities are there. So I invite you to get very clear on what you want to create. Clarity is very important. We stressed that tonight. But even more important is to let go of your attachment to what you think, how you think it's going to happen. The how is not important. It's 99% the what, 1% the how. So get clear on what you want, let go of your attachment to what it looks like, and trust that the universe knows exactly the form to deliver for you that has all the qualities that you truly want. And so we are ready to wrap up the show tonight. And I want to thank you for being my wonderful co-host. And Jackie, I want to thank you for being here tonight as our guest on this very important conversation. We really appreciate your time.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor to interview you. All right. And so there actually is one more quote that we actually have time for, and I'm going to take a moment to read it. I was going to close the show with this, but I got a little bit confused on the timing tonight, and I thought we were wrapping it up. So here's the quote. It's from Gandhi, and it competed with that other quote, but I thought I'll do both. Here's what he says. Keep your thoughts positive because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive because your words become your behaviors. Keep your behaviors positive because your behaviors become your habits. Keep your habits positive because your habits become your values. Keep your values positive because your values become your destiny. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. And
Shall we?
Send
them off?
Send them off.
Until next time, remember, get conscious now.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcata Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
Hello, I'm Twyla Kim. I've been an artist and hairstylist in Santa Barbara for 20 years. I personalize color, design, and precision haircuts for each individual at Sequel Salon in Montecito. I'm happy to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.